one guy who you'd have to say has that major exception, and my favorite of all time, which I'm sure would make you appreciate why I find this so exciting at the same time, is Bret Hart, who really is an exception in that sense as far as he talks about in his book. His mic skills never came quite naturally to him. He did get good at it. He eventually had a period where he really could hold his own on the mic. But does that speak to what Bret was like in ring?
Yeah, I think so. But I think one of the things that, that I think the most important thing of why, like Bret made it and guys do, is that there's a genuineness there. There's something very real that comes across to the people where they, again, even if you don't have some of those skills, they go, you know what, he's real with me. I'll take it anyway, whether he talks good or not. You know what I mean? And that's, to me, I think that's the difference. All the guys that have made it, and then these guys that haven't, I think there's a genuineness that whatever they may not have. Again, if a guy's, Steve was Steve. When you heard Austin talk, even though everything he said was still cool and everything else, you knew that was Steve. And if you know Steve, it is Steve. You know what I mean? And so that's why it worked. Bret, it wasn't because people sat at home and said, he's so talented, but he's, his mic skills aren't great, but I'm gonna go ahead and accept that from him and like him anyway. No, it was just, you knew that's how Bret is.
Now, of course, you and Bret ended up having such an crazy, incredible history, but it started for you guys in tag matches all the way back when you first got there. I mean, you guys were working together on some level right away. What was your and Bret's relationship like early on, pre-97? We're talking, that's 9 years before that. You guys were already working together.
Yeah, well, no, and that's one of the things, because I can't give away too much here because we cover so much
in the new DVDs coming out. I know.
So
don't give us everything.
No, but that's the thing. That's the thing that we talk about a lot in this, is because, obviously so much focus goes on,
Montreal.
And these two hated each other. But holy cow, at one time, and we were really close. And when we had the chance to talk about all of this on the DVD, you sit there and you look at each other, and again, all these years later, you're older, you're wiser, and you almost sort of, break down a little bit, because it's like, dang, man, even though we said we didn't, we weren't going to let these things happen, and you can see it happening, and you're not going to get this way in the business. You're not going to let those things get a hold of you. It still does. And everything breaks, and things do break down, and you do all those things to each other you said you weren't going to do. And it's like, oh man.
What always fascinates me in wrestling is the interpersonal relationships. That while all these things go on, there's people don't. And I try to explain this to people, like, you have to understand this brotherhood, the level, the amount of time these people spend together. That whether there's a real life feud or not, there's so many relationships. So when everything was going on with Bret and things got pretty strong, and then Bret goes to WCW. There's still Davey Boy, and there's still Owen, and I was always curious about what your relationship, when your relationship got to its worst point with Bret, what your relationship was like with Owen and Davey, particularly Owen, who I know everyone regards as just about the most likable guy who was ever in the business.
Yeah, and that's amazing. It was all good with them. That each one of them individually would come to me and say, "Look, what problems you have with Bret." They don't have nothing to do with me. And we were able to, strangely enough, in a business where sometimes, whatever maturity and good decision making and things like that are not always in the highest regard, those things did happen with them. We all knew. It's like we at least had the guts to talk about the elephant in the room. And that happened with it happened with Anvil, it happened with Davey, it happened with Owen. There were hey, can I talk to you? And we would sit and talk, and my relationships with them were always fine. And that's all you can do. Even Bret and I, he and I, and again, one of those things we talk about, he and I, we never gave up trying to work on that relationship. We were constantly coming back to each other, like, let's talk, and trying to work it out. And, and every time it would just fall apart again. Some of our biggest, whatever arguments came literally hours after we sat and talked for 2 hours about how we're going to put all this behind us, and it would just go out and fall apart again.
How does
we were such
How does
oil and water. It wasn't funny.
How does a wrestler though have let's say you're pissed. You guys try to talk about it, didn't work. He's a son, I blah blah blah, and you're pissed at each other. And then the next hour you walk out and have to have a match where you have to appear that you hate each other, but also protect one another, and that's the most important thing. I never understand. It was the same when, for example, when Matt Hardy and Edge had their thing over Lita years ago. Well, I go, how do you do that? How do you have real hatred and
it goes down to what you said. The most important thing is to protect. Yeah, I mean, you can't. You just, you can't go there. Only a coward, takes advantage of another guy's body when when he's trusted him with it. You just can't. Maybe there aren't that many things that are just voodoo and hands off in our line of work, but that's one of them. You just can't. No matter what kind of differences you have, when you get in there with each other, there's too much at risk. There's too much, at stake. You could really hurt a guy. You know what I mean? And it's like if you've got a problem, we can, again, because nobody. That's the thing. Nobody's got a problem. I mean, for the most part. I mean, and guys that do, they won't say it, but if there's a problem, there's the shower talk, man. You know what I mean? You get pulled any place in the locker room, you're fine. You get pulled to the shower, you need to understand it's going to be go time. You know what I mean? And so, that's always an option, but it's never an option out there in the ring. It's just that's just a no-no.
One last random old school question I want to ask you about, because you were around for this period and I find him fascinating. How crazy was Dynamite Kid? Because the stories about Dynamite are pretty nuts.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to be honest. I mean, I don't have any real stories. We came in.
Were you just right when he was on the way out?
Yeah, and I got to be honest. I mean, for us, Dynamite was nothing other than a guy that was really honest with us. You know what I mean? And the only story I have with him was one of the things he said to us. Probably it was maybe about a month after we got in. And he came up to us and he said, "Hey, I just want to talk to you guys." And he was obviously cursing, but he was like, "I don't give a whatever it is you guys do. I don't care. It's not my business." He said, "But you guys don't go up and say hi. You don't go up and you don't do the proverbial handshake with everybody. When you come into the locker room and say hello to everybody. Everybody thinks you're
a d-bag."
Yeah. And it's like
we weren't doing that at that point. You weren't.
No, because we knew everybody hated us. We were petrified of everybody. And that's one of the things, like Marty. And I think Marty's comfortable saying it now. But I mean, we knew everybody didn't want us there, so we just sat in the corner and didn't say anything. That again, it's like the shy kid. You'd either take the shy kid as well. He's a shy kid, or isn't he stuck up? You know what I mean? We were just petrified of everybody, and we didn't want to say. I mean, we felt like two kids amongst this locker room of men that didn't like us. We weren't going anywhere. We came in, we sat in the corner, we did our thing, and we left. And he came and told us, "Dude, that's not working. That everybody thinks that you just think you're, as you said, d-bags." And it's like, that's not it. We just, dude, we're petrified of everybody. They don't like us. He goes, that doesn't matter. He said, "You've got to go to everybody and do that." He said, it's BS, it's crap. He said, "But you've got to do that." And so we started doing it. And
every night you do it too?
Every night.
Even if you saw them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you shake every hand.
Yes. I mean, it's something. I mean, I do it. I mean, it's one of those things that like years later now, I look at people and like, don't do it. You don't have to show me the whole proverbial wrestler respect by shaking my hands, because now people do it. I'm telling you, on Mondays, and like now when I go, I'm rarely there. I'm telling you, you're shaking hands all day.
All day? It must be
all day. And the thing is, and it's like every time you see a guy. I mean, I see him at catering. It's like, "How you doing, brother?" It's like, you shake the hands. Like, "All right, thank you, nice, thank you. Just want to say, I got it."
Well, and you must really get it. And it's now you're Shawn Michaels legend too.
That's the.
You're double. You have to get double handshake.
I say this jokingly, but you feel like. You know what I mean?
Is that the ring, by the way?
The ring out. Yes, that is the ring, by the way.
The fan drain. That was a very cool moment.
It was fun. But it is. I mean, you see him in catering, and then you pass him in the hall. It's like, oh, we've done this. And I've literally shaken the same guy's hand like 4 times in a day.
Is it true the lightness of the handshake? Is that overstated?
No, it wasn't. I mean, put it this way: you sort of know how much a guy knows by like if he shakes your hand like a man, you're like, okay, he knows that. But yeah, and I don't know where that started. When I first broke in years ago,
This right?
Hey, how you doing, brother? Yeah, I mean, it's just the flimsiest. I did that once to my dad. After I came back from wrestling, he's like, "What is that?" And I just never did it again. But yeah, it's the tradition is like you shook
light handshake.
It's how you shook hands, like how you worked.
So you want to show that you're not going to be overly hard.
I'm not going to kill you out there.
So you give a little handshake.
Yeah, but I mean the thing is, I've shook a guy's hand that has got the light handshake, and then he's going out there and beating the piss out of me. So obviously that the rule doesn't apply. And so anybody can shake your hand lightly and then go out there and beat the crap out of you. Yeah. So that's when I decided the whole handshake thing needs to go out the window. We can shake hands like.